Hi everyone, so this week is going to be a bike review and it's another Honda. It's not a long-term loan Honda, it's just I've got the bike for the day from Bridge Motorcycles in Exeter. They kindly lent me it and yeah, so we're going to see what it's all about. So this is the Honda NX500, which is pretty much the same thing as the CB500 with some major upgrades. So we're going to see what they are today and see what the bike is like. Now, I'll be perfectly honest with you, I got a lot of stick from my CB500 review back in 2019, purely because there was bits on it I didn't like. From memory, the things I didn't like was the screen was too low, it's very buffety, very noisy on the motorway, and yeah, it just didn't work for me. It didn't work at all. Now I've had this bike, well, I've ridden it for a very short distance so far, but those problems seem to have been sorted out. Light setup there, that's almost like a stacked headlight. That seems to be the way a lot of manufacturers are going at the moment, doesn't it? Like Suzuki and alike. It looks much higher than the CB500X. It's got that more of a Dakar type bike feel to it. Still got the 19-inch on the front with a 17 on the rear, which changed in 2019. So there's nothing new as such there. And also over here we have a new dash as well, which is really nice. And this is something that they needed to do. This is one of my complaints as well. TFT, and we have a rev bar there. We have all the Bluetooth connectable set up there as well. And yeah, mileage and all that. I'm not going to go too much into this today because there's enough to get through. So yeah, gear indicator as well, which is nice. You can see it, and compared to the CB500X, massive improvement. On the left bar we have heated grips on this particular model, which we won't be needing today. Traction control on and off. Menu buttons up and down, very nice, feels great. That really sort of takes you through the menus quite nicely. Again, I'm not going too much into this today. Shift point, auto reset, trip A, Honda integrated security system, display, brightness, background, general, date and time, language, restore default, Bluetooth pairing, reset, service information as well, maintenance and the equipment that you have on the bike. So let's just keep all that simple for now. All right, so we've got the gear indicator, that's what you want. You want the fuel gauge, yes. Rev bar, debatable, but why not? Yeah, that's there as well. Miles per hour, and this here as well, the trip A, trip B, and your total mileage. So beautiful to look at. Brilliant upgrade that is. That's something that they needed to do, and now it's done. As I say, the thing that sticks out to me at the moment is just the way the bike looks. It looks much higher now, looks a bit more capable. We're not going off-road on this bike. I've always said that the CB500X was not really set up for it. I feel this bike would be better than the original version for a couple of reasons really. Mainly the suspension is really nice now. It's got the Showa front suspension there and ProLink suspension at the back. So yeah, I think that's enough talking and interruptions from cars, even though we're in a place which never has cars. We've had about 50 of them come down, so we'll get out on the road and see what it's like. Start her up. Off we go. Second gear, third gear. Right, first impressions then. So now, like I say, I'm comparing this slightly to the CB500X, only because me and that bike have history. So, as I said in the introduction, the front seems a lot higher now. I'm not sure if it's been for a remap, but it kind of feels alright the way it is to me. Just cut the corner, love, don't worry about that. And off we go. And instantly you can tell that the screen is a lot better than what it used to be. Sixth gear, between 4th, 5th and 6th gear, they're quite close together. There isn't a lot in it. It still feels very light, very easy peasy to manage, and it doesn't feel like it runs out of puff like I felt the way with the CB500X. So what is it like on a dual carriageway? So we'll soon find out. Now I've got traction control settings here, look. If I hold on to that, it will turn it off. However, we don't need that in this case. So we'll pull out of here and give it a quick 0 to 60. Or 70. There you go, 5th gear. And up to 70, and we're just over 5,000 revs there. Now, I've ridden this bike down on the dual carriageway so far, and I can tell you that it is surprisingly good. It's surprisingly good. The reason being mainly, I guess, that screen does quite a good job, although it gives you a bit of wind on top of your head. And it is quite turbulent, but it's not noisy anymore, which is the main thing, because if it's noisy and turbulent, then it's not very nice, is it? But it does a really nice job of cutting through the air, but it still makes you feel like you haven't got a screen in a strange kind of way. It probably makes no sense at all, that, but anyway, I know what I mean. But yeah, doing this at 70, I've still got loads and loads left. If I take it down to 60, 6th gear, rolling on there. It will do 70 easily, cruising, and it'll probably do 80 cruising as well. It does feel like quite capable, really. So, sat in this position, the seat will get uncomfortable like any seat will after a few hours, but it's nice and spongy, so it's actually not too bad. The bars are quite well back, so you may not need bar risers on this bike like you will on others, like I do on my NC, for example. The mirrors and visibility is normal stuff, really. It's alright. I got good mirrors on my right hand bar. The left hand bar isn't bad either. So yeah, I would say that I could sit here quite happily at this speed for quite a long time. Probably 200 mile runs, no problem at all. 200 miles there, 200 miles back is fully achievable on this bike, no problem at all. It is revving quite, well, what seems high, but I mean obviously the engine is designed to do this speed. And it's, yeah, as I say, it's still comfortable. If you're with a pillion doing this, because it is quite low geared and we're up there on the revs there, then you should be okay. Would you want to? Probably not. It's a little bit cramped if you're going to do it as a serious touring bike as such, but again, it's quite happy doing it. If you want to do it and you don't want luxury, then it's okay. Right, on to the next. Lovely jubbly. Yeah, town riding, commuting, superb. And again, the clutch is so light, you can just hold it in at the lights if you want to. I know some people say you're not meant to. It's a 500cc bike. If I do let go, it's just going to stall. Nothing else is going to happen. But I prefer to be ready myself. Off the lights, they're way back there, look. It is a bike which, if you ride it around town, you'll probably find yourself in 6th gear quite a lot of the time, or 5th gear sometimes. The gearbox is still low. This is one of my complaints of the CB500X, was that it was low geared, but also it was mapped, for me, it was mapped wrong. And I got, you know, again, I got some abuse for it. It's alright. It's only my opinion. Who am I? I'm just like you. But yeah, it was mapped wrong for the gearbox. Whereas this, seems to marry up with the gearbox a lot better now. It works for me, this bike. Well, I don't know if you know the story, but where am I going here? Yeah, I want to go left here. So the story was that I was on the market for a CB500X. I went down to Bridge Motorcycles, I tried it. No, it wasn't for me, for those very reasons. It was noisy as hell on the screen, the gearbox was too short, and the engine was mapped utterly wrong for what I wanted. So that they were deal breakers for me, and I couldn't compromise on it. So the same day I tried the Honda NC750X, and it ticked every single box for me. It still does. I still have a 750X over this bike, but it is very much a different machine. It's you know, certainly my model, the older model, it is heavier. It takes a bit more skill to ride. Still good bike, don't get me wrong, but yeah, it just worked for me a whole lot better. So yeah, so that's what I got in the end. I got myself an NC750X, and I can't imagine not having that bike now. It's all I want in a bike, really, even now. But this bike here, you know, whether you're an experienced rider or a new rider or A2 or whatever, it will do all that you want it to do. It honestly will. There's nothing to think about there, really. It's just a matter of if the speed, you know, what sort of speed that you want. For me, it's adequate. Any bike is adequate, really, isn't it, speed-wise? And it's a fun type of speed as well, you know. It's a peppy engine, and you can really use the engine to have a bit of fun. But you're still not going as fast as many other bikes will do. But you know, should you at the end of the day? Probably not. But some people just want to do that, don't they? So that's up to them. Would I have one? Not now. No, I would have back then. Just because it's just what I was after at the time. I'd have an NX, yeah, for sure. Before now, I've always been a big fan of the 500F. I thought that worked better than the 500X. Whereas now, yeah, I think this trumps the 500F. It does more. You got the wind protection. It feels more upright. More you sat into the bike as opposed to on it compared to the 500F. It's a common question that I get asked all the time. What bike would I go for? An F or an X or the CBR, and now the CL500. I do like the CL500 actually, I must admit, but I did have an aftermarket, or not a non-standard seat, and that seat was killing my ass by the end of the ride. So at the moment I think I'd probably go for the X. Not the X, this one. But yeah, it's all quite close. You know, there's no wrong decision on what Honda 500 to go for, because they're all blimmin' good. They all do, you know, what you want it to do. Even the 500 CBR, it's an awesome machine, really good fun. But yes, there's no easy answer to which 500 Honda to go for. You just got to go for one, and that's it, you know. Very, very good bike. So the seating position on this, like I say, I like having the handlebars here. They feel in a natural position. I don't feel like I would need to have bar risers put on. Although it's always nice to have them back as far as you can, for me, because I do get funny shoulders. Yeah, I like it. I just like the whole setup of the bike. So it's a really good option. I'd recommend one to anyone at the moment, the way I feel at the moment about it. Alright, we're going to walk around the bike now and see what's what and let you know my thoughts on it overall as an overall package. First of all, let me show you at 5'8", 30-inch inside leg measurement, fully flat on the floor. It feels quite light when you're actually sat on it like this. Certainly as an experienced rider, it feels really, really good, manageable, and you don't feel like you're going to drop it or anything. If you did drop it, the first thing that's going to happen is you're going to hit these bar ends and some of these side panels here. You can get crash bars, of course, for this bike, and in the normal Honda way, and loads of other extras as well. Factory heated grips as well, for example, soft luggage, and you might even be able to get some hard luggage for this as well. So obviously rear rack, top box, all the normal things there. Seating comfort wise is really nice. I've got no issues with that. I think it should be fine. It's quite spongy, quite a hard sponge, but quite nice. I can't tell you what it's like for pillion riding, but it's quite a narrow seat. So I think for people who are going to be doing a lot of pillion riding, I think that's where the line is with this bike. I think most people would probably want something with a bit more power and a bit more oomph in it. But for shorter, you know, just like Sunday runs or cafe runs and things like that, it'll be absolutely fine. For the A2 crowd, I highly recommend it for them. I think it's a good light bike if it's the sort of thing that you're after. I mean, all the CB range and now obviously the NX500 have all their own little traits which you might want. A sports bike, for example, so you go for the CBR. You might just want a street bike, which is the F, and obviously we got, well, what was the X is now the NX500, which is this one here, and it does now feel like a more of a capable touring bike. Also with this well-proven parallel twin as well, it's one of those bikes which if you wanted to go on an adventure or a trip or something, you know that this is going to be 100% reliable. You know that you can push the button and it will start every morning when you want it to. And there's a lot to be said for that, you know, because when you're doing a bigger trip or going away somewhere, you don't want that thought of what happens if, you know, do I need to get, you know, a breakdown service or anything like, you know, things like that. You know, you don't have to think about that because you just know that it will take you from A to B reliably, you know, and there's a lot to be said for that. Now, is there anything that I don't like about the NX500? And I honestly can't think of anything at the moment. Would that change over time? Possibly, yes. But I can't think of anything much at the moment. I think 4th, 5th and 6th gear are very close together. You know, I think perhaps they should have been a little bit longer there, perhaps. It does well on the motorway. It will easily do 80 all day long, no problem at all there. It is the sort of bike which is quite peppy. It is quite a racy sort of engine, and I mean that in a good way. You know, it gives you a bit of excitement if you want to go for a little play. Then this little 471cc engine has got that. And while I'm on that, it gives you 47 brake horsepower at around 8,500, somewhere around there. So it is an engine which, to get the max out of it, you have to be revving quite high. It's not a low-end chug sort of engine anyway. It is mapped to be quite tractable on gravel and those sort of roads. So is it a green laner? I don't think so. I don't think so at all. But as with any bike, it will do it. It just depends what you want from that bike and how good you want that bike to be in that environment, isn't it? So it just depends what you want there. You can get the Rally Raid kit and spec it up, but by the time you spent £3 grand on it, why wouldn't you go for a different bike? You know, whether that's a Standout, which is good at off-road as well, in my opinion. So let's talk about the concluding thoughts on the NX500. Overall, I think it's a brilliant bike for no matter what your experience is. I think it's a really good bike. There's nothing that you can hold against the bike, whether it's the price or the engine or any of the reliability factors of it. There's nothing to talk about there. It is a really good machine. Now the question is, why wouldn't somebody buy an NX500? I think the answer to that really is just what you want to do with a bike. you know, if you're going to be carrying a pillion, then I would say that there might be better options if you're doing longer distance travel. You know, I'm talking about motorway travel, maybe you're doing 200 miles or 300 miles or whatever. I mean, of course any bike will do it, but there comes a point where you find that you might want a bit more power with a pillion, and certainly when it's loaded up as well with luggage and things like that. So it's all right, you know, I mean, it'll still do it, and I think it'll be fine for cafe runs and things like that. I think you'll have a whale of a time, but over time you might want to change up to it. Why else wouldn't you want to buy one? Well, perhaps you want a bit more speed as well. This isn't particularly, it's a nippy bike, but it isn't a fast bike. It's the way that it's been mapped, you know, for the engine map and also the gearing, is that it is everything's quite low down. You know, so it does run at a puff through the gears quite quickly. Certainly 4th, 5th and 6th, they are quite close together. So some people want something which they can race a bit more. I think it's great. I think this is a fun bike to hoon around on. But it's not a fast bike, and it's not trying to be either. So if you want something like that, then the CBR is definitely tuned a bit more for, you know, it spreads out a bit longer in the rev range. So that's an option for you. Why else wouldn't you want to buy it? I think that's the only reason. It's just a matter of how much you carry a pillion, how loaded you're going to be, and how fast you want to go. Simple as that. Apart from that, this has a bit of everybody in it, you know, whether you're experienced, a new rider or a returning rider, this bike has something for everybody. Also, it has really good economy as well with this tank here. This is 17 litres in here, so you're not going to be filling up too often. And that adds an element of convenience as well. So 17 litre tank, and you're going to get around 85 miles to the gallon, which is, you know, it's just fantastic, isn't it? So spec wise, we're looking at 47 horsepower at 8,600 RPM, and it has 43 newton meters of torque at 6,500. So figures, you know, quite high up there really in the rev range to get the maximum out of the engine, but you normally find that you're running around sort of 4,000 or 5,000 RPM anyway. Weight wise, we're looking at 196 kilograms. Again, it's very, very manageable. It's quite a short bike as well. It doesn't feel long, you know, from my arm length from this handle to the handlebars really isn't very far, and it's got quite a tight turning circle as well. So yeah, it all works quite well. So there you go, guys, that is another review done. Thanks very much to Bridge Motorcycles for their support and lending me this bike for the day. And now I have got other long-term reviews on the Trans Alp, on the CB500F, and their bikes direct from Honda, which I've gone into a little bit more. So I haven't been able to do pillion riding setup and things like that on this video, which I normally do. But it's still giving you, you know, a big picture of what it's like for me as a normal everyday rider, just like you. So thanks very much for watching. Please give the video a big thumbs up. That makes a huge difference to me. And if you haven't subscribed, subscribe, because I've got loads more coming from Honda and other bikes this year. So yeah, thanks a lot. See you next time. Cheers. you.